"You're officially not part of this family," my dad texted. "You never were." I didn't respond. I just revoked my name from the shared property title, terminated my access to the generational fund, and filed for formal severance from all joint investments. By 7:43 a.m., my sister had called 7 times. At 9:12 a.m., my mom's voice cracked in a voicemail. "Why are the lawyers involved?" I just sipped my coffee and replied. What I didn't expect, what I never saw coming, was that it would be my own parents who turned on me first. Not over something I did, but because Adam, their golden child, whispered the right lie at the right time. That was all it took. Not even a conversation. Just a text from my dad at 7:13 a.m. "You're officially not part of this family. You never were." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I realized I was finally done pretending. Done pretending I owed them anything after everything I had already given. They wanted me out. Then I was out. At 7:24, I logged into the property title account and removed my name from the lake house they couldn't afford without me. I transferred full ownership to them. So when the property tax hit next quarter, it had land squarely in their laps. I revoked their access to the generational fund I created and paid into for nearly a decade. $500 a month they'd grown, used to, like oxygen, gone. I sent the papers to my attorney at 7:36 to terminate all joint investments and filed a formal severance from the LLC. My sister called 7 times by 7:43. I ignored every call. At 9:12, my mom left a voicemail, voice cracking halfway through. "Why are there lawyers involved?" I texted her back one line. "Ask your youngest." This wasn't about revenge. Not at that point. It was about removing myself from a house of cards before it fell and took me with it. But that's the thing. When people get used to you carrying their weight, they don't know what to do when you put it down. My dad always treated the family like a business. Except when the business failed, then it was suddenly a family emergency. And guess who was always the emergency fund? I was the one who bailed them out when a freight company lost half their inventory. I was the one who paid the attorney when they got slapped with a zoning violation. I'm the one who worked nights to build the generational trust while they took vacations and called it strategy retreats. They never thanked me. They expected it, like I owed it to them just for being born. And Adam, he contributed nothing. Not money, not time, just charm, excuses, and a never-ending list of things he needed someone else to fix. But he had one superpower. He knew how to say exactly what our parents wanted to hear. He could twist my caution into disloyalty, my silence into arrogance, my patience into threat. He told them I was planning to dissolve the company behind their backs, that I was secretly transferring assets, that I was cutting them out of something I created for them. And they didn't even ask if it was true. They just sent the text. The irony? I never planned to leave. But now I was. And I wouldn't be good to them anymore. I wouldn't be the fixer, the bridge, the quiet daughter who showed up, cleaned up, and never asked for credit. They had picked Adam. Let them have him. Let's see how far charm gets them when the bills roll in and the fund is empty. They thought they were punishing me. They had no idea what was coming. It started unraveling slower than I expected. You'd think cutting off someone's financial lifeline would create instant chaos, but it was more like a slow-motion collapse. At first, silence, then confusion, then desperation. It was the third day after my dad's text when he tried to pull money from the generational fund, a routine withdrawal, $2,500 for the office lease. It bounced. I knew it would. I had already frozen their access and removed my authorization for any automated transfers. The account was still active but locked from their side. I watched the decline notice come through my monitoring app at 10:16 a.m. By 10:25, I got a missed call from my dad, then a voicemail. I played it once. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He sounded like someone who couldn't quite believe the rules had changed without his permission. By noon, my mom had texted, "Can we please talk? You're scaring us." That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected for a long time. They never seen me as a person, just a pillar, a piece of infrastructure they could lean on without ever asking how much weight I could hold. The moment I stepped away, they didn't know how to function, and that scared them more than anything. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the server I used to manage the funds distributions and downloaded 3 years' worth of transaction logs. Not for them. For me. Just to remind myself of every month I had quietly covered gaps in payroll, property maintenance, private school tuition for Adam's kids when he was between opportunities. I tallied it all up that night. Just under $430,000 of my own money used to keep their lives running. They'd grown addicted to the idea that money would always be there. My money. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was meticulous, focused. I hired my accountant the same day to begin the full audit of every joint investment, every asset, every line of ownership where my name sat beside theirs. My goal wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was separation. Financial amputation. A clean cut. But things didn't stay quiet. By the end of the week, the calls doubled. My sister texted me nonstop. She switched between pleading and passive-aggressive guilt trips. "You're hurting, Mom. Adam made a mistake, but you're making it worse. You're punishing us all." But I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just done giving without question. My mom emailed me a long letter 2 days later. I still remember the subject line, "Please don't do this." The body was a mix of nostalgia and emotional leverage. Stories about how she remembered holding June as a baby, how proud they'd always been, how she couldn't understand why I was doing this now. Then the turn. She said Adam felt horrible, that he got carried away, and that he'd only been trying to protect the family. Protect them from what exactly? The one person who actually was protecting them. I didn't reply. But that email did something important. It clarified their angle. They weren't trying to fix anything. They were trying to spin the story, get ahead of it, shift the blame to me, and rewrite Adam as the poor, misunderstood little brother who made a simple mistake. That's when things got darker. I got a call from an old family friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. He sounded awkward, clearly reading from a script someone had coached him on. He asked if I was okay, said he'd heard some disturbing things, and wondered if I was being manipulated by someone or going through something I wasn't sharing. My parents were running a smear campaign. I hung up on him without a word. The next morning, I logged into the family business account, one of the last shared pieces I hadn't touched yet. I downloaded all the documentation, ownership contracts, client rosters, operating agreements, and then I called my attorney. I told her I wanted to begin the process of exiting completely, not partial withdrawal, not reduced involvement, total separation. She asked what I wanted from the company. I told her, nothing, but I would be taking every cent I'd ever invested, and I wanted it all documented, signed, and legally bulletproof. She hesitated. Most people don't walk away from something that big without strings. But I was done trying to fix what had never been mine to begin with. They never saw me as a partner, just the resource. And now the resource was shutting down. I didn't care what happened to the company after I left. I didn't care if Adam ran it into the ground in 6 months. Actually, no, that's not true. I did care. I wanted to be watching when it happened. The official severance came through on a Tuesday morning. I got the confirmation email at 8:42 a.m. All documents signed, submitted, and stamped. I was no longer part of the family business, legally, financially, structurally. Every tie cut. Every access point revoked. My name no longer existed anywhere on their books, their accounts, or their future. That morning I sat on my balcony with a mug of black coffee, watching the city move beneath me like it didn't even notice the storm I just set loose. It felt quiet, too quiet. Like the calm between a fuse burning and the actual explosion. It didn't take long. By noon, my mom showed up at my apartment. I didn't answer. She buzzed for almost 10 minutes straight. Then she texted me, "Please don't throw it all away." Throw what away? They already had. The moment they chose Adam's story over mine, the moment they let him turn them against me, without even checking if anything he said was true, this wasn't about business anymore. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. And for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe them any. They tried everything after that. First came the guilt. My dad left a message saying he understood now and that maybe they overreacted. My mom sent voice notes pretending nothing had happened, talking about a new marketing idea like I was still on board, like the last 2 weeks hadn't happened. Then came the promises. "We'll make changes. You can restructure the business however you want. We'll step back and let you lead." It was almost funny. They really thought they could bait me back with scraps of the control I had already earned, already built. I'd led that business from behind for years, handled the finances, restructured their operations, even rebranded their failing line when they were 2 months from default. They slapped Adam's name on the success and sent me thank you texts. Now, they wanted me back because without me, everything was starting to crack, but I wasn't going back. I didn't reply to any of it. Instead, I doubled down. I met with my accountant again and started redirecting my reclaimed investments into a separate venture I had sketched out years ago, back when I first realized I'd never truly have a place in that business unless I owned it entirely. I never pursued it then. It didn't feel right. Now it did. I registered a new LLC, filed the paperwork, started calling former clients, not to poach, just to let them know I was doing something new. If they were interested, great. If not, no hard feelings. But the truth was, most of them had always preferred working with me. I was the one who returned their calls, solved their problems, cleaned up the messes Adam created, and my parents ignored. The first contract came in a week later. Then another. Then 2 more. Meanwhile, things on their end were slipping. Adam had been bluffing his whole life. Now he had to perform, and he couldn't. He didn't understand supply chains, budgeting, client management, or taxes. My dad started emailing me questions like I was still on payroll. I didn't answer. Then, 3 weeks after my exit, I got a call from Adam. He didn't start with an apology. He didn't even ask how I was. He asked if I was hiring. I stared at my phone for a long time after Adam's call. He didn't leave a voicemail, just let it ring twice. I didn't call back. 3 days later he texted, short and clean, like he thought keeping it casual would erase everything he'd done. "Hey, I heard you're doing something new. Any chance you're looking for help?" It was so absurd. I laughed out loud. The same guy who had poisoned my name inside my own family, who told our parents I was trying to steal the business, now wanted a job. At first, I thought it was a joke, or maybe one of his pathetic plays to gather intel from my parents. But then I saw the signs. His LinkedIn had quietly updated to open to work. His posts about entrepreneurship and legacy building stopped. Whatever mask he'd been wearing had started to slip. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a message to someone else. Her name was Clara, a project manager we'd worked with for years who left quietly after clashing with Adam over budget issues. I remembered how good she was. Precise. No drama. Got things done. She replied within the hour, and we set up a meeting. Within a week, I had 5 former vendors back on my side, 2 major clients signed, and a small but sharp team forming. People were excited to work with me, not because I was flashy, but because I followed through. Word was spreading that I was building something real, and more importantly, that it was stable. Then came the real curveball. My mom invited me to dinner, not an email. A handwritten card delivered to my office with the restaurant reservation printed and tucked inside. "We just want to talk, no pressure, please come." She was trying to reset the board like nothing had happened. A warm dinner, a few emotional lines, maybe a little reminiscing about when things were good, then the pivot. "So, How can we make this right? I didn't go, but I sent someone else. Adam. That morning I finally responded to his message. Come in tomorrow at 9:00. Let's talk. He showed up early, dressed up too much, wearing a watch I knew he couldn't afford anymore. He didn't ask about the business. He didn't apologize. He acted like it was a networking meeting. I listened, watched him pitch himself like we hadn't grown up in the same house. Then I slid a contract across the table. Entry level. No equity. No title. Base salary. Modest. I watched him read it twice, eyes twitching when he hit the probationary clause. He asked if this was a joke. I said no. He left without signing, too proud to take it. I knew he'd be back. The next morning he did. No questions. Just the signature and a handshake that felt more like a surrender. Word got around fast. My parents didn't say anything at first. Then, a week later, I got a long email from my dad, rambling, apologetic in the vaguest way possible. Buried halfway through was the line that said everything. We just don't understand why you're doing this to us. As if this was punishment. As if it wasn't just the natural end of something that had rotted long before I ever touched it. The truth was, I wasn't doing it to them. I was doing it without them. 3 weeks after Adam signed the contract, the cracks in my parents' business became impossible to hide. Their largest supplier cut them off due to unpaid invoices. 2 long-standing clients jumped ship. One of them joined my roster without me even reaching out. I got a polite email from their rep saying they preferred clear communication and timely delivery, which I knew was code for "we're done waiting on Adam." But the real shift came when my parents found out Adam worked for me. They didn't hear it from him. I knew he hadn't told them. Probably out of shame. Probably because some part of him still clung to whatever illusion he built about being their pride. They found out through a client, someone who assumed they all still talked. My mom called me first. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to her talk in circles. She didn't even sound angry, just bewildered, like she couldn't understand how everything had flipped. She said something about betrayal, about loyalty, that this was a slap in the face after all we've done. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say, but what surprised me most was how quickly their attitude toward Adam changed. The favorite, the youngest, the one they shielded from every consequence. He was suddenly the scapegoat. I heard it from my sister. She called one night, late, after a glass too many of wine, and unloaded everything. Mom says he humiliated them. Dad called him a traitor. They're saying he manipulated everyone, including you. That part made me pause. Including me. They still couldn't see that I had never been the one manipulated. Adam had been their reflection. He did what they trained him to do, protect the illusion, no matter the cost. And when that illusion shattered, they hated him for it. Not because he broke anything, but because I didn't. Because I walked away and built something better. And now, watching from the outside, they finally saw what I'd been holding up all along. Meanwhile, Adam changed slowly. He stopped showing up late, started asking questions, real ones. He stayed quiet in meetings, took notes, didn't act like he was owed anything. I wasn't sure if it was guilt or desperation or just the slow realization that I wasn't going to hand him shortcuts. But it didn't matter. He was learning what it meant to work for something. My parents weren't. They were too busy watching their empire shrink. Without me, the structure I built, the invisible scaffolding behind their success, had collapsed. No more financial buffer, no more quiet fixes, just them, their decisions, and the consequences they never believed would come. And the irony? For the first time in my life, they started treating me with something close to respect. They never said it outright. But the way my dad's tone shifted in his emails, the way my mom stopped demanding and started asking, the way they finally stopped pretending they knew better, it was there. And that, more than the money, more than the business, more than anything else, was what I'd wanted all along. I almost missed it. The envelope was tucked between two junk mail flyers on my office desk, plain and unmarked. No return address. The handwriting on the front stopped me. It wasn't clean or polished. It was tight, rushed, like whoever wrote it had gone back and forth on whether to even send it. Inside were 2 pages folded twice. The paper was thin, probably ripped from a cheap notepad. The first line read like a report. Revenues down 42%. We lost 3 contracts this quarter. It was from my father. No greeting, no apology, just numbers and facts, as if he were writing to a board of directors. For a second, I thought maybe he sent it to the wrong person, but then it turned. He wrote about the clients leaving, about the accountant they had to fire because they couldn't afford her salary anymore, about how he hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since February, how he missed the feeling of stability, even if he never appreciated it at the time. Then came the line that hit. You were never the outsider. We just made you feel like one. It was the closest thing I'd ever get to the truth from him. Not a real apology, not forgiveness. Just a man realizing he'd spent years protecting the wrong son, the wrong priorities, and the wrong version of the story. The letter ended with a quiet request. Come back. Not to fix it. Just to talk. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things, once broken, aren't meant to be put back together. But I kept the letter. Not because I believed he meant everything he wrote, but because I knew he believed it now. And now was too late. The same week, Adam quietly became something unexpected. Consistent. He wasn't brilliant, but he showed up. He listened. He kept his head down and started solving things he used to hand off. I didn't know if it was guilt, survival, or maybe just finally growing up. But whatever it was, I didn't question it. I let him earn it. One night, I stayed late at the office to finalize a new contract. I found him still at his desk, sorting out a vendor issue that used to send him into a spiral of blame and excuses. I asked him what he was doing. He didn't even look up, just said, I'm trying not to mess this up. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. The new company was thriving, smaller, leaner, but sharper. Clients trusted me because I didn't lie to them. I didn't overpromise, I just delivered. And the best part? No one could take it from me. But I wasn't done. While my parents tried to stay afloat, I was quietly negotiating something they hadn't even noticed. A quiet acquisition. Not of their business. Too obvious. Too theatrical. No, I was after something else. A small logistics firm they depended on. The one that managed 70% of their regional distribution. They hadn't paid their contract in full for 2 months. I knew it because the owner called me, asking if I knew if they were still solvent. I didn't answer that question. Instead, I asked what it would take to buy him out. All of it. He gave me a number. I wired a deposit by the end of the day. The deal would finalize in 3 weeks. And when it did, my parents' business wouldn't collapse overnight. It would just slow. Orders would take longer. Routes would be less efficient. Deadlines would shift just enough to hurt. Just enough for them to realize that respect once lost is expensive to buy back. The update. It's been 11 months since the text that ended it all. The business my parents once held together with pride is still standing, but it looks different now. Smaller. Quieter. Stripped of the confidence it used to project. They lost their top contracts, most of the staff left within 6 months, and now they rent out half their office space just to keep the lights on. The logistics firm I acquired is still running smoothly under new branding. I kept the team, cleaned up their balance sheet, and absorbed their network. It became one of the best moves I've ever made. Adam is still with me. He still shows up early. He still keeps his head down. We don't talk about what happened. We work. That's the agreement. I don't trust him completely, but I've learned to separate trust from usefulness. He knows what side of the table he wants to be on now. That's enough. My parents haven't tried to contact me again since the letter. I think they finally understood that this version of me isn't one they can manipulate, guilt, or steer. I don't hate them. I don't even feel angry anymore. But I won't go back. That door closed the second they picked sides and then tried to rewrite history after the fact. I used to think family was unbreakable, that no matter what happened, blood would find a way to pull you back in. But I was wrong. Family isn't about blood. It's about value, respect, mutual effort. Without those, it's just a contract you never signed. People say revenge is sweet. Maybe for some. For me, the real satisfaction came from walking away and building something of my own. Watching my life grow, not from what I took, but from what I stopped giving. Sometimes you have to let it all collapse to see who was holding what up. And sometimes you have to let people fall to find out if they ever really stood with you at all. I'm good now. That's the update. I'm good. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about how different it all could have been. If they had just asked me instead of assuming, if Adam had told the truth, if they had seen me as more than a safety net. But those thoughts don't linger like they used to. They pass like traffic outside my window. I've stopped needing the version of family I used to chase. The people I have now, the ones who show up, contribute, stay honest, they're more than enough. That's the thing about letting go. You don't just lose what hurt you, you make room for what won't.